Hey, this is Jamey from Stillmeyer Games. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite mechanism in the heavy Euro game On Mars. Yeah, I just played On Mars for the first time recently, played a 4-player game, and there's definitely a clear favorite mechanism for me, and that is, in this game, you're doing a lot of different things. This kind of worker placement at times, but not always. But the key thing that you're doing is developing a colony on Mars. However, not all the things that you're doing are on Mars, and the core choice in the game that you're making on a round-by-round basis is, do you stay on the colony, on Mars itself, or do you go into orbit and mostly gather resources? And so it's hard for me to show you the entire board because it's a very big board here, but you can kind of see that there on this side of the board are colony side actions. And you can only take these actions if you are physically in the colony, if you are in the colony over here on this side of the board. But when the round is over, depending on the round exactly, but early on in the game, when the round is over, you have the choice of getting on a ship and going up to orbit and going to the other side of the board where there's a completely other batch of actions. Here's just the top of them here on the board. There's a completely different array of actions that you can choose when you are in orbit, mostly involving gathering resources. So a lot of what you're doing is gathering resources in orbit and then going to the colony and actually using those resources. And it just it gives you the feel of two different games using the same game language. And it's all about kind of the timing of, like, how long do I stay on one side of the board? Are other players here with me? And when do I decide to make that move to go to the other place? And you aren't even really wasting any time going from one place to the other. You lose a little bit, but and oftentimes you can even gain something there's little bonuses that you gain depending on what order you choose to land on the other side. And there are some little tokens that you can pick up and kind of place on the colony as you go over to the colony and back and forth. So it isn't even like a downside to necessarily move, but it's still all about a timing. When do you actually move? Where are other players? And what do you need? Because actually one of the key things here is that you can only typically gather back the workers that you've used when you actually move from side to side. But you might end up leaving some workers behind on the actual board. If you've placed workers on the board, you might leave them behind as well. Yeah, just a really, really interesting concept that you're kind of playing these two different games at different times, and the game itself is deciding when you want to play those games, when you want to gather resources, when you want to move over to spend them. Do you want to go back? Do you want to go back and forth a lot? Do you want to try to only use each side a couple times throughout the game? I'm sure there's some master strategists here that can comment on the best strategy in the comments. I'm open to hearing that. But I just find this mechanism of having two different styles of worker, or two different... It's not even only worker placement, because there are some actions that don't require workers, but just these two completely different sides of actions on this board I think is really, really clever. The orbit side and the colony side. That's my favorite mechanism on Mars. And if you can think of any other games that do something like that, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks. Oh, also, before I go, let me know if you have a different favorite mechanism on Mars, because there are a lot of mechanisms in this game. If you have a different one that I've missed, feel free to mention it in the comments below. If it is your favorite, this is definitely my favorite, but let me know what your favorite is below. Thanks.